The boardroom went deathly quiet as I clicked to the final slide of my presentation. The new budget figures glowed on the screen, and I could see Karen's face shift from smug confidence to sheer horror. Her perfectly manicured nails dug into the conference table as she processed the unexpected $5,000 increase in HOA fees. "What is this?" she shrieked, her voice rising higher with each word. "Who authorized this outrageous increase? This is completely unacceptable." I adjusted my tie, relishing the moment. I had been planning this for weeks, and now it was finally coming together. "You did, Karen," I said, offering her a calm smile. "The moment you fined me $1,000 for swimming in my own lake." Her face twisted with disbelief, and I couldn't help but savor the silence in the room. Let me back up and explain how we got here. My name is David, and I've lived in Willow Creek Estates for 15 years. When I first bought my property, it wasn't just the 4-bedroom colonial or the 3-car garage that sold me. It was the pristine 20-acre lake that came with the deed, Crystal Lake, as the original owners named it. The lake sat partially on my property and partially bordered the HOA community. For over a decade, this arrangement worked perfectly. Neighbors would wave as I took my morning swims, and occasionally I even let the HOA host their summer picnic on my section of the shoreline. But then Karen became HOA president. If you've met someone like her, you know the type. She showed up to her first board meeting with a leather-bound notebook, color-coded tabs, and a mission to bring order to the chaos. Within her first month, she'd issued 17 warning letters for infractions ranging from mailboxes being 2 inches too tall to grass being half an inch too long. She even measured everything with a ruler she kept in her purse. The real trouble started on a beautiful Saturday morning in June. I was doing my usual swim, floating on my back and watching clouds drift by, when I heard that unmistakable shriek. Excuse me, sir." I looked toward the shore and saw Karen standing there, dressed in her HOA president blazer, despite the 90-degree heat, waving a clipboard like a battle flag. "You need to exit the water immediately," she ordered. I swam closer, though not too close. Something told me she might try to citizen's arrest me with that clipboard. "Good morning, Karen. Beautiful day for a swim," I called, trying to keep things casual. "Swimming is strictly prohibited in community bodies of water," she announced, reading from her clipboard. HOA Regulation 7.3.9 clearly states that all recreational water activities require board approval and proper insurance documentation. I treaded water, genuinely confused. "This is my lake, Karen. I own it. Check the property records." She adjusted her oversized sunglasses, the type that screamed, "I need to speak to your manager." "The HOA governs all shared natural spaces within our community boundaries," she replied. "This lake borders HOA property. Therefore, it falls under our jurisdiction." "That's not how property law works," I said, starting to swim back toward my dock. "We'll see what our lawyers have to say about that," she called after me. "Consider yourself on notice." I figured that would be the end of it. Surely, once she checked the property lines and deed restrictions, she'd realize her mistake. But I underestimated her determination and her ability to twist reality to fit her narrative. The certified letter arrived the following Monday on official HOA letterhead. It detailed my blatant violation of community standards and assessed a $1,000 fine for the unauthorized use of community resources. The letter went on for 3 pages, citing made-up regulations and threatening legal action for my reckless endangerment of community safety. I decided to take the reasonable approach first. I gathered copies of my deed, highlighting the sections that clearly showed my ownership of the lake. I included the original survey from 1952, the water rights documentation, and even a letter from the previous HOA president acknowledging my private ownership. I hand-delivered it all to Karen's house. She answered the door wearing another blazer. this one pink, as though she had a whole closet dedicated to HOA authority wear. "David," she said, not even looking at my documents, "the fine stands. The board has spoken." "The board?" I asked. "When did the board meet about this?" "Emergency session," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We take safety violations very seriously." I later learned that the emergency session consisted of Karen and her two closest allies meeting at Starbucks. The letters kept coming, one nearly every day, each one more threatening than the last. She filed complaints with the city, claiming I was creating an attractive nuisance. She started a whisper campaign among the neighbors, telling anyone who would listen that I was setting a dangerous precedent. Mrs. Henderson from 2 doors down even asked if it was true that I was planning to open an unlicensed water park. That's when I decided to stop playing defense and start playing offense. I spent the next 2 weeks buried in HOA documents, bylaws, contracts, agreements going back 30 years. That's when I found it, the smoking gun. An easement agreement from 1998 allowed the HOA to use a portion of my property for maintenance access to their section of the lake. The agreement included rights to the small beach area where they held community events and the gravel road their maintenance trucks used. The kicker, the agreement expired after 25 years unless formally renewed. It was now 2024. Nobody had remembered to renew it. I verified everything with my lawyer, who actually laughed when I explained the situation. "So she's fining you for using your own property while her organization is technically trespassing on it? Yes, this is going to be fun." I waited until the next HOA board meeting to drop the bomb. These meetings were Karen's pride and joy. She ran them like congressional hearings, complete with a gavel she bought on Amazon and strict Robert's Rules of Order. I signed up for the public comment period and waited my turn. When she finally called my name, her tone dripping with disdain, I stood up with my own leather folder. Two could play the official documentation game. "Thank you, Madam President," I began, matching her formal tone. "I'm here to discuss the expiration of the easement agreement between the HOA and my property." The room went silent. Karen's gavel hand twitched. "As you may or may not be aware," I continued, pulling out copies for each board member, "the HOA's legal access to the northern section of Crystal Lake, including the beach area and maintenance road, expired 6 months ago. I've been tolerant of the continued trespassing, but given recent events, I feel it's time to formalize a new arrangement." Karen's face turned from red to white to a shade of purple I didn't know was possible for human skin. "This is ridiculous," she sputtered. "We've used that access for decades without legal authorization." "For the past 6 months," I clarified. "My attorney has drawn up a new lease agreement. The terms are quite reasonable. The HOA can maintain access for the low annual fee of," I paused for effect, "$5,000. The gasp from the audience was audible. Someone's coffee cup actually clattered to the floor. "5,000, Karen shrieked. "That's extortion." "That's market rate for lakefront access," I replied calmly. "I had 3 commercial real estate agents provide comps. If anything, I'm giving you a discount. Of course, you're welcome to decline and lose access entirely. I'm sure the community would understand losing their beach area and having to drive an extra 4 miles around the lake for maintenance." The board members started whispering frantically among themselves. Tom Bradley, the treasurer, was already pulling up budget spreadsheets on his laptop. Karen looked like she was about to have a stroke. "You can't do this," she hissed. "Actually, I can," I said, sliding the lease agreement across the table. "You have 30 days to decide. After that, I'll be installing a gate." The next 3 weeks were glorious chaos. Word spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. The same people who had been avoiding me after Karen's gossip campaign suddenly had very strong opinions about fiscal responsibility and board overreach. The Facebook group exploded with demands for emergency budget meetings and calls for accountability. Karen tried everything. She sent cease and desist letters that her lawyer probably charged her a fortune for, only to be told they had no legal standing. She tried to claim historical use rights, but couldn't provide the necessary documentation. She even tried to get the city involved, but they wisely stayed out of a civil property dispute. Finally, with 2 days left before my deadline and facing a full-scale resident revolt, the board called an emergency meeting. A real one this time, not a Starbucks coffee clutch. The community center was packed. People were standing in the aisles. Someone even set up a live stream for residents who couldn't attend. Karen sat at the head table, her usual blazer replaced with a severe black suit that made her look